I was always reading. I learned to read when I was like 3. So there was always in my imagination something other than what I was living through,
Yeah.
say when I was 8 or 9 and people were shooting outside. And then my sisters would come just in the closet. We have this big closet with our coloring books and have us in there playing, and they would play music so we wouldn't have to hear it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What, so like, you talk a little bit about resilience. I'm just thinking of like a resilient growth mindset, right? Do you have one of those, right? How do situations like that you grew up through, how did they add to that and or help nurture that and or necessitate a resilient growth mindset for you?
But I think for me, it's been imagination. Like I had to imagine otherwise. And education and reading were the pathways that I could find that worked for me. So that's where I put all of my energy, was in making sure that I had an education, that I finished school, and that survival wasn't my only goal.
Yeah.
Right. So survival is a baseline goal when you're in certain situations. I've certainly had that when I was in the Navy. It was like getting through it. But I had in my mind always the fact that I would finish and go back to school, because that was the reason I joined in the first place.
Yeah.
So having something in mind that is beyond your circumstance so that you're not mired in it, I think helps to create resilience.
Absolutely. Okay. Now you said you were a little, what did you say, honorary? Right?
Yes.
You said, like to kind of, not necessarily, did you say you like to challenge authority? Or did you
I think I naturally did that. I mean, if you laid out all of those identity markers, and just by existing, it's like if you are public with those existences, you're almost in conflict automatically.
Yeah. So could you share an example of a time when you challenged conventional notions of success within your Black community? What impact did that have on you?
That's a good question. I have to think about that for a second. It's been a long life.
Yeah, because I think I like that this kind of came up, because I think about like some people in our community may hold that going to the south of France is the pinnacle of success, right? And or some people may hold that, because I think it's a nuanced thing when you're talking about, you're in the castle, they did your laundry, etc. I don't think that you were saying at that time that these were definitions of success so much as we were kind of talking about self-care. Right. Some people in our community may hold those type of ideals as like the pinnacle of success. So yeah, how do you think you have challenged those traditional ideas of success?
I think maybe just by thinking of it differently.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe my being a single parent, like the whole time almost, and sort of refusing to force myself into situations where propriety would take precedence over my well-being or my sense of autonomy. And my son being creative himself and letting him do that. People don't necessarily look at that as success, but I do.
Yeah.
So I'm maybe the reverse of what you're saying. Like folks who place expectations on me because of what my statuses are, and yet I'm doing these other things anyway, and that feels successful to me.
Yeah.
I think I think less about what other people think.
Yeah. Were you able to hold that thought when you were as you've grown? Because for me, I like me and my wife talk a little bit about that a lot, like the space that other people's thoughts have, or my assumption of other people's thoughts. Because essentially, they're not thinking about you because they're thinking that they have so much to think about themselves. What weight that you kind of place on that, specifically for me as like a creative, but also just human, right? Like when I feel like when I'm younger, I thought a lot about, I think a whole bunch of myself was like outside of me, the shoes I had on, and the way I kind of held myself. And what I was thinking about when you were talking about your son, my reluctancy to even be a creative, right? In the type of masculinity that was kind of handed to me. Right. So I'm thinking about all of those things when you're talking about how you think less of what people think about you. How do you kind of come to that? Did you always hold that? What other aspects? I mean, do you see that in other people? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I think I learned that it's impossible to meet other people's expectations and be well. And so grinding oneself into oblivion is not success to me, even if it looks like it on the outside. So I have a Mercedes Benz. I'm a big fan of Formula One. I love Lewis Hamilton is my favorite. And so that's part of the reason why I have a Mercedes. But if people see that and they think, oh, she's rich or whatever, so that's not really how I actually think about her. If I was really successful, I could go into racing Monaco. Oh, maybe one day.
Yeah, like I was just thinking when you were saying that, I was like, I have spent a shameful amount of time watching videos about what my car can do. And like with the like a jerk, you said there's a mode called dynamic mode. In suspension, A5 was the S-Line Sportback, right?
I had an A for him.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there and like it has nothing to do with like, you know, how much it costs and everything to do about its performance, you know.
Learn to drive.
Yes. No, and I think, but like we said, like I held a different relationship with it when I was younger than I do now, that I appreciate a whole lot. And another thing, when I was just thinking about notions of masculinity for myself, what's the name of the other poetry book that we were talking about before?
The I'm So Fine. Yes.
And so
I'm So Fine, a list of famous men and what I had on.
So can you take me? My copy hasn't arrived yet. Can you take me through a little bit of what I can expect in that? And I mean, like I said, I was thinking about masculinity and its relationship to that title, but take me also through femininity and its relationship to that title, and what it's about.
Well, it's about my growing up in LA in the 80s and 90s as a young woman. And I had to exist in public space a lot because I didn't have a car and we take the bus. And so there was a lot of street harassment. And in those days, it's pre-social media. So we would see celebrities at the mall or on the streets, or they roll up on you, or etc. So it's just my relationship to being seen and perceived, and the many, 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 many negative interactions, as well as the few that stood out as positive. So again, with the contrast, but the book kind of does it in a sneaky way because I'm using humor. And that makes when bad things happen that much more cutting, because you're like, wait a minute. And it interrupts that flow in your mind. And yet, because it doesn't have punctuation, you're speeding through these interactions to symbolize the kind of nonstop nature of it.
Yeah. What about you're a visual artist as well? What kind of visual art do you create? How did you get into that world? And yeah, let's pause right there. What kind of visual art do you create? How did you get into that world?
I used to do performance art.
Okay.
But now I'm mostly just making collage and watercolor for myself. I've done some painting, a lot of drawing, but I think now it's mostly for me. And you said mind shifts and path shifts. I think art was my first love, but I did have a really negative experience in art school.
Okay.
And that just kind of, I had to pick between doing art and being a parent.
Yeah.
And so, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I had to pick my kid.
Uh-huh.
And so it's for me now. We'll see what happens later. Maybe when I retire, I'll do an Alma Thomas or something.
Yeah.
But it's a way of expressing that is beyond language to me, or a different kind of language. And it takes a lot of energy to inhabit.
Yeah.
And I need more private space in order to make art. And I don't have that right now.
Yeah. You said something about language, just made me think about, I was reading a book, Admitting Principles by Ray Dalio. He was talking about some of the reasons that he goes into learn about neuroscience and psychology. And so he's talking about like neuroplasticity, which I can say the word, but I don't necessarily know all it entails.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
So he was talking about the amount of connections between the brain synapses and some other particular word. And he said it was beyond language.
Mm.
The ability to describe the amount of connections is beyond language.
Mhm.
When you think about art in a sentence like that, and what you said about like, the visual art, your relationship to it, what do you kind of have floating in your mind?